to give those famous words is the chairman of the board of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mrs. Mary Hallman George.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
There's the command, Mary Hallman George, and the engines roar to life.
Welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We hope you'll enjoy your ride around the track. And for the consideration of all of our guests during the next 10 minutes or so, may we please ask you to place your cell phones on silent. Thank you. The 500 was held for the first time in 1911, but the track was already in its third year, built early in 1909 as a testing facility for the thriving automobile industry. Many famous makes were from here, like Marmon, National, and Cole, with the best-known ones coming a little later on with Stutz, maker of the famous Bearcat, then, right after World War I, with the Duesenberg brothers. Indiana roads were still a few years away from being paved, so there was nowhere to really find out what an automobile could do and what its weak points might be. This track would solve that problem. Not only could the manufacturers test here privately, but occasional races would give the spectators a chance to see in competition what they could go down to the showrooms and purchase. The man who created all of this was Carl Fisher, the very same man who would later develop Miami Beach from swamplands into an exotic resort area. He also developed Montauk Point on Long Island and spearheaded the first drivable highway across the United States. We entered the track between turns 1 and 2 at the South End Short Straightaway. Up ahead is turn 2. There are 4 turns, each measuring exactly 1/4 of a mile from entrance to exit, and they are banked at 9 degrees and 12 minutes. The main straightaway, which we will be seeing in about 5 minutes, and the backstretch, coming up in just a moment, each cover 5/8 of a mile, so that the entire track is 2.5 miles around. From time to time along the way, you'll see some of the portions of the road course. Built between 1999 and 2000, it winds through the infield and links back up with the oval over to the northwest. On the right are the original VIP suites built in 1973. We are riding on the very same 2.5 miles used by the drivers 100 years ago. Only the surface has changed. During the fall of 1909, down went 3,200,000 paving bricks, which is why the track still carries the nickname, the Brickyard. And where are the bricks today? Well, about 85% of the way around, they're still there, buried under several layers of asphalt. The most recent repaving job took place in the fall of 2004. If you think you may have spotted a golf course on either side of us, well, you have. It dates back to 1929. It's been revamped a couple of times since, most recently in 1993 by the world-famous Pete Dye, who used to live in Indianapolis. There are now 4 holes inside the track and 14 over on the right. The old course was once a major stop on the PGA Tour, the 500 Open being held between 1960 and 68. Each September between 1994 and 2000, the seniors played here. The 3-2-1 markers over on the outside fence are 100-yard reference points for entering turn 3. The 500 drivers will make the turn at about 220 miles an hour. The NASCAR drivers with cars which are double the weight will go through at about 170 miles an hour. The fastest laps ever completed here by 500 drivers have been right at 240 miles an hour. That means negotiating a 2.5 mile lap in less than 38 seconds. Or to put it another way, it's the equivalent of traveling down a football field in about 9/10 of 1 second. When we are in the turns, you can see the famed safer barriers up against the walls. They have done much to absorb the energy in the event of an accident resulting in wall contact. Safer barriers are coming into more and more use at major tracks, but the very first one was installed at this one in 2002. Carl Fisher had 3 partners, one of whom was James Allison, founder of the famed Allison Engineering. They sold the Speedway in 1927 to a group headed up by World War I flying ace, Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, who had in fact been a regular 500 driver before he ever learned how to fly a plane. In 1945, the track was sold to Anton Holman Jr. of Terre Haute, and it has remained in the Holman George family for over 60 years. Over on the left at the final turns of the road course, on their way to linking up again with the oval. Out of turn 4 and onto the main straightaway, corporate suites and double-decker grandstands. And can you imagine going all the way down there in 9 seconds? Drivers making pit stops used to drive all the way down the straight and pull over to their respective pit. In 1957, a separated pit lane was installed, and it may have been the first of its kind anywhere in the world. The current 500 cars have to stop several times during the race. They'll take on fuel and change 4 wheels in less than 10 seconds, and they don't use gasoline. From 1965 until 2006, everyone used methanol. Starting in 2007, the 500 cars have run on ethanol. NASCAR, however, does use gasoline, but blended with 15% ethanol. The tall building on the left is called the Pagoda. It was completed in 2000. This is where the Master Control Tower stood from 1957 until 1998. And prior to 57, a Japanese-style pagoda occupied this spot, and that's the reason for this current design. This one, however, has 10 floors and rises to the equivalent of a 13-story building. At ground level, and slightly over to the left, is the current winner's circle for the 500 and the Brickyard 400, and just above it, the rostrum for the top 3 finishes in the MotoGP motorcycle race. The start-finish line isn't hard to locate. It's marked by a strip of bricks. As late as 1961, when A.J. Foyt won his first 500, the greater part of the main straight was still of bricks and mortar. And imagine that prior to the late 1930s, the entire 2.5 miles looked like that, and it made for a pretty rough ride.
Okay, so back when the track was first built in 1909, the original surface was not brick, it was crushed-rock and tar. That early surface proved to be very fragile and dangerous. When they'd race on it, it would run up and form potholes, becoming dangerous for the drivers to race on. So the winter of 1909, they decided to pave the track to make it safer. And the reason why they used bricks instead of concrete was because at the time, bricks would be more durable than concrete and would last the Indiana winters a lot better. So it took 3.2 million bricks to pave this entire 2.5 mile oval. It took a crew of 200 men and mules to bring the bricks over and pave the track, but it only took that crew 63 days to pave this entire track. It's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week till the track was paved. The whole track made all bricks surface-wise until the mid to late 30s. They started paving the corners, first with asphalt by 1937. 1939, they paved the whole back straightaway, but they left this front stretch right here still exposed brick all the way up until 1961. So that means they race on smooth asphalt 2/3 the way around here and then jar their teeth out with the front stretch with the exposed bricks. We have a tradition here for the winners. After they win the race, they come out to the yard of bricks and kiss the bricks in celebration of their win. That started in 1996 by a NASCAR driver named Dale Jarrett. When Dale won his first Brickyard 400 that year, the NASCAR race we host here, Dale and his crew chief came out from the yard of Victory Lane, out to the yard of bricks, knelt down, kissed the bricks in celebration of the win. That's how that tradition started. So we're going to head out here, but there's a couple rules. You'll notice little lines cut in the asphalt. What those lines are from is something called timing grooving. The last time the oval track was repaved was the fall of 2004. After they paved the track, they skipped off the top layer of the asphalt to smooth out the racetrack. So it's a very abrasive surface. So please, when you're out there, no running, because if you trip or fall, it'll crush you up pretty bad. The other thing too is I know Elio Castroneves likes to climb the fence when he wins Indianapolis 500. None of us here won the 500, so we stay on the fence on the wall, so that's great too. So you guys want to follow me out here?
Or to replace the one there since '59. It's anchored in 22 feet of concrete, and the windsock is 97 feet off the ground. How many 30-watt bulbs are there in it? 6,496. On the left is the entrance to the Speedway's famed garage area and gasoline alley, which, while having changed in appearance over the years, has been back at that approximate location since 1914. We can't see it from here because of the trackside Formula One garages built in 2000. Further down here on the left, just before we enter the turn, is where Victory Lane used to be from 1919 until 1970. Between 1947 and 59, Hollywood actresses were part of the post-race ceremonies, among them, in 1958, a very young Shirley MacLaine. Here we are in the famous Turn 1, and on the infield you can see some more of the road course. That brings us to the south end once again to approximately where we started. A 500 driver at speed would have lapped us, probably about 15 or 16 times.
So you guys see these first 4 corners right here for our infield road course. The road course was built in 1999 and opened in 2000 for Formula One. Formula One raced here from 2000 to 2007. After 2007, Formula One stopped racing here. Then we added in 2008 MotoGP motorcycles to run the infield road course. In 2008, they had to modify the road course a little bit to fit the motorcycle's needs. Whereas Formula One took turn 1, the 9-degree 12-minute banking of turn 1, the motorcyclists did not want to run on a banked portion of the racetrack, so they added these 4 relatively flat corners to bypass turn 1 of the oval. Now this past winter they announced that there was going to be a new IndyCar road course race. The IndyCar is going to run the road course for the first time in the 105-year history of the track. The IndyCar is going to run something other than the oval track, 2 weeks before the Indianapolis 500. So this winter, they modified the road course again to fit the IndyCars. They made the track wider, they changed a couple corners for the IndyCars, and they repaved the entire infield road course surface. So now we have 3 major road course events during the summer. The Grand Prix of Indianapolis, the IndyCar road course race, the Tudor sports cars run the road course during Brickyard Weekend, and the MotoGP bikes run in mid-August. So those are our road course events we have here. As you see the hospital. The hospital, that building right there, is the oldest building on the infield of the track. It's built in 48. But on the inside, it's up to date with state-of-the-art medical technologies. Yeah, it's now 48 medical equipment. This parking lot right here is where the drivers park their RVs. If the driver has any sort of leisure time between being in the car, being in the garages, and be like sponsor obligated events, they hang out there. To your right, you can see portions of the road course wise behind the museum. Another thing is this parking lot that we're in right now, this is where the drivers or teams will park their haulers. They're big semis that carry the cars and supplies from track to track. Once they unload everything in the garage area, they'll bring these haulers and park them in this parking lot during the duration of their stay until the race is over. They pack them and load them up. If you're wondering why that tunnel is so deep that you drove into today, let's get the semis in. That's the same way the semis interconnect at the racetrack. That same tunnel you guys drove into. These white buildings you see here, these are temporary buildings. They're chalets. What they're used for, they're our largest suites. Corporations will rent these suites out, different areas of it, and host VIPs or their guests in these suites. Sorry, but besides being the largest suites we have here, the other thing that really helps the track out with those suites is since they're temporary buildings, in Indiana you don't get taxed on a temporary building. So they don't have to pay property taxes on them. So it's pretty smart thinking. What we're going to do next, we're going to do the walking part of the tour. You can leave anything you want on the bus. Kim's going to park and lock up the bus and meet us back inside. When we head in here, if you guys can take a seat first, let me get my talking jazz out of the way real quick, then we can take pictures. So if you guys follow me.
This room right here is the press conference room for the Motor Speedway. Any sort of announcement the Speedway will have to make most likely will be done in this room right here. But most famously, it's used for the post-race winning driver interview. For our oval races we have here, the Indianapolis 500, the Brickyard 400, which is the NASCAR race that we host the last weekend of July, and then we also have the Indiana 250, which is the NASCAR Nationwide Series race that happens the day before the Brickyard 400 in July. The winning driver will sit in the middle of the desk up there. They'll bring up whoever they want. Usually it's like car owner, crew chief that's up there answering the questions with the drivers. The 3 road course races I mentioned earlier, they have what they call a podium finish, where they celebrate first, second, and third position. So the top 3 finishing drivers sit behind the desk, and those are the only 3 drivers that are allowed up there. No other family or crew members or anything like that are allowed during those races. So if you guys want to sit behind the desk and take your pictures, feel free to. Just watch your step when you hop up here. You're on a platform where you're standing or sitting on this. So grab it. All these infield buildings I'm going to take you through, going this way, including the infield portion of the road course originally, was all built in 1998, 99, and opened in 2000 before Formula One started racing here. The back concrete wall to where you guys are standing in the front of this room is longer than a football field in length. There's 350 chairs in this room right here, 118 TVs hung up above you, and then on the second floor of this building is the overflow room floor for this floor. The overflow room holds another 150 media members. So 500 total media members are between both these floors, and both floors will be packed full of media while they're here. Third floor is a cafeteria with the meetings for free while they're here. If you look out the racetrack, you can see out the windows here, you can see different portions of the racetrack. The area that you guys were standing on, that's the racing surface, that's where the cars will race at, and go with speeds up to 230 miles an hour. The other lane, closer to you with the white lines painted, the road begins to your guys' right. Some of you guys may be able to see the opening of the road just on the outside of turn 4. It starts there, it runs on the inside of the front straightaway, ending right before turn 1 of the oval. There is a speed limit on pit road. It's 55 miles an hour for NASCAR, 60 miles an hour for IndyCar. So they have to maintain pit road speed as they drive down the duration of the pit road. If they're caught speeding on pit road, there's a penalty. What that penalty is, while everyone else is racing at top speed, the driver that was caught speeding on pit road has to drive back through pit road again underneath the speed limit. So by the time that driver drives down pit road at 60 miles an hour, while the other cars are going 230 miles an hour, the leading cars, the leading pack will come back around the whole racetrack itself, lap the driver down the lap. And by the time the driver that was caught speeding on pit road finishes their 60 miles an hour through pit road and gets back up to race speed, the leaders will come back around and be on the verge of lapping the driver down another lap. So it's very detrimental, especially later in the race, to be caught speeding on pit road. The white lines on the inside of pit road, those make up the pit boxes, so the spaces the cars will pull into to actually change their tires and fill the fuel up. They'll pull into that pit box. The crew will change all 4 tires and fill 18.5 gallons of fuel in about 8 seconds for the Indy drivers. They can actually choose what pit box they want, but that's based on how they qualify. So if they qualify first, they get first choice, and then it goes in order how they qualify. They get to choose what pit box they want. So that's a little bit about the pit stops. Ticket prices for the events, the upper level grandstands that you see across the track. That's our most expensive ticket we have to any of the races here. It's $180 a seat up there. The lower level, all the lower level down there is $105 a seat. Underneath you guys here is about $90. Average ticket in the corner is around $100. Cheapest ticket we have is a $40 general admission ticket. Now with the general admission ticket, you do not get a grandstand seat. All these grandstand seats you see around the track are reserved. So on your ticket, if you have a reserved seat, you go to your grandstand section, number, row, seat. You have a seat. You don't just sit where you want. You go to a assigned seat. With the $40 general admission ticket, you sit, if you want to watch the race, on the infield. So you can go anywhere you want around the racetrack. You just don't get a reserved seat. So there's big grass spectator mounds on the inside of the racetrack. Inside of turn 2 of the oval, down the back straightaway of the oval, turns 3, they have the big mounds, turns 4, and then throughout the infield road course, they have grass spectator mounds. So with the $40 ticket, people bring like lawn chairs or blankets and sit and watch the race from inside the track. With any ticket you buy here, you can bring your own coolers with your own food and drinks. So you're not limited to their concessions. While you're here, you can bring your own food, drinks, alcohol, whatever you want to bring in here, you can bring in. There's 2 rules. There's a size limit for the cooler. It's like 18 by 14 by 14 inches, so it's a decent sized cooler you can bring in. The other thing is, there's no glass containers allowed in here. That's a safety thing. We don't want people throwing glass bottles in each other. So they will check the cooler when you walk in through security. They'll check the measurements and what's in it. So there is a line of coolers that didn't make the cut. They were too big that they can't bring in. So check the size of them. We compare ticket prices to other big name sport events. The size of the 500 is relatively cheap for the size of event that this is for tickets across the board being less than $200 for the most expensive ticket. Then they do deals where if an adult buys the $40 general admission ticket, a child under 12, they can bring them in free. So, family of 4 with 2 kids under 12, that's for $80. It's relatively cheap. It's the way terms. Any questions or anything before we head out of here? Big order trophy out that all happens down there. This top part though is used for the pre-race festivities. The taps, 21 gun salute, prayer, national anthem, all are done from this spot right here that we're standing on. This year, for the last time, Jim Davis stayed back in Indiana. That's actually where the white little tape mark is. And so, you can stay in there and they'd be right campus. Now, the tradition of drinking the milk for the Indy 500 winner dates back all the way to 1936. That year, we had our first 3-time winner of the 500. His name was Louis Meyer. It was a very hot race that year. The track surface-wise was still pretty much all brick at the time, and it took a lot longer to run 500 miles because the cars went slower speeds than what they did to longer run. So Louis was exhausted and won the race that year. He grew up here on a farm in Indianapolis, and his mom, while he was growing up, would always say, if you feel tired or bad, drink buttermilk. It's the best thing for you to drink. So that's what Louis drank in Victory Lane, a big bottle of buttermilk. While he was drinking the milk next to his car in Victory Lane, someone took a picture of it. Somehow the Milk Council got a hold of that picture, and they used it as an ad in all the nation's newspapers. So you had Louis drinking milk in Victory Lane here at the Speedway across all the state's newspapers. That's how the tradition started. What they'll do today is they'll ask all 33 drivers what type of milk, in case they win, what they want to drink in Victory Lane. And they get any type of milk they want, as long as it's white. So no chocolate or strawberry milk. If you don't like you drink for the pictures. Another incentive to help drink the milk is the Milk Council gives them 25 grand. So that's a good incentive also. There was one driver though in recent history that didn't drink the milk when he was supposed to. In 1993, this driver had orange growths in Brazil. He wanted to vote, so he thought he'd be good. When the fans found out he was drinking orange juice, not milk, furious that he was not drinking milk. Later that night, the driver tried to make amends by drinking milk and Victory Lane tickets. That driver was Emerson Fittipaldi. You guys remember him, 2-time Indy 500 winner and former Formula 1 champion. So,
is that the first time you won or the second?
The second time. So the first time he drank the milk was straight after that. If you guys want to stand on the platform and take your pictures, feel free to. Just please watch your step. Don't jump on or off of it. Less than a month from now. This is where you'll see the main announcers. This is the TV broadcast booth, this little square right here. Obviously, when you watch it on TV, it'll look a lot better than this. It shows you the magic of TV. This is what it really looks like. When they come in, they'll decorate up real nice. Actually, when we walk out of the door, the big cardboard stuff over there, that's the stuff they use to make it look better. So I haven't thrown that stuff away. So that's pretty much about this room. The only thing that will be similar is the view outside the windows, the backdrop. You got the bricks, the scoring pylon, turn 1, somewhat, all the grandstands. It looks nice behind them when they're talking. The room over here, though, this is a little bit more interesting. Race control is where the racing officials and stewards will be. They monitor what's going on the racetrack. The wall TVs in there correspond to cameras that they hang up around the racetrack. Those cameras are all around the track. What they're usually, those cameras mainly for is to scan the track for any sort of debris that's on the track. If they find something that could cause harm to the driver or the car itself, what they'll do is the officials in here will radio to the flagman, wave the caution flag, yellow flag will be waved. The pace car will then pull out onto the racetrack. All the cars will slow down, they'll lead, they'll follow the pace car around the track until they go send someone out to pick up or clean up what they find. When it's all clear, what they'll do, scan the track one last time in this room right here with the cameras, make sure they got everything, and then they'll radio to the flagman one more lap under yellow. The pace car will lead the cars around one more time. When they come off of turn 4, the pace car will pull into the pit road, and then they'll wave the green flag, and all the cars will go back up to racing speed and start racing again. So that's what will happen in case they find something. Underneath the TVs are VCRs. That's what they use to tape the race. The reason why they use VCRs to tape the race instead of DVD players or DVRs is not because they're cheap and they don't want to buy a bunch of new equipment. What they tell me, it's harder to alter something that's on tape than it is to alter something digitally. So I'm a car guy, not a tech guy, so I take their word for it. And then the last thing, there's a poster in the back wall of that room. That poster is the outline to the MotoGP circuit that runs around the infield portion of the road course. So that shows you what the road course will look like on the inside of the racetrack for the MotoGP motorcycle race. That's what the track looks like for that race. Any other questions right there?
What is the pace car speed during
There's what they call the judges stand that lasted from 1909 to 1912. This right here is the first pagoda I was talking about. 1913 they built. This lasted until 1925. Second pagoda, 1926, all the way to 1956. And then over here, we have the master control tower that lasted from 57 all the way to 1998. This man in a suit right here posing in the picture, that's Tony Holman. He bought the track in 1945. In the 105-year history of the track, it's only had 3 ownership groups. His family, the Holman George family, still owns the track since 1945. And that's him right there. So we're going to take the elevator up to the next one. It's empty, like this. During April, we have the largest non-auto racing event we have here is the mini marathon. It's the nation's largest half marathon. They had to cap the runners off at 40,000 people because it was just getting so big. They start running wise. They run from downtown to the racetrack, take a lap around the racetrack itself, and run back downtown to finish the 13.1 miles of the mini marathon. About 2 weeks after that, they have what they call the mud strut. The mud strut is where you pay $25. All that money goes to the Humane Society, and you get to walk your dog around the racetrack. So they set up trash cans up and down the track. They have golf carts just in case the dog or the owner can't make it around the 2.5-mile oval. They don't have to drag each other the rest of the way. They can get carted to the finish line. There's over 5,000 dogs here for this year's mud strut and 1 tortoise. Somebody somehow brought a tortoise here, and they let it walk around some parts of the track at least. They got a picture of it crossing the start-finish line. So, the first ever race we hosted here at the Speedway in 1909 was not an auto race at all. It was a motorcycle race. It was a hot air balloon contest. It was a distance contest. They had a dozen hot air balloons. They lifted off of the south end of the racetrack here. The winning pilot made it all the way to Alabama. So he made it a pretty far distance. It took about a week and a half for them to float all the way down to Alabama. Carl Fisher was one of the entries in that balloon race. He was the 24th person in the United States to get their hot air balloon pilot's license. And he finished 4th in the event because him and his co-pilot got sick of it. When they flew over, they had to land in Tennessee because when they flew over both Kentucky and Tennessee, farmers would run out of their farmhouses and shoot at them, shoot shotgun shells at them. So they got sick of that, so they landed and just gave up.
We are open here every day of the year except for Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. For your convenience, there are 2 souvenir gift shops inside the museum building and a massive selection of photographs dating all the way back to 1909 in the photo shop up on the 2nd floor. If you'd like a little more history right now, you might enjoy the video in the museum's Tony Holman Theater. Your museum ticket is all you need to get in. The golf course and the Brickyard Crossing restaurant are located just outside of Turn 2. Well, that's the tour. Thank you for coming, and please visit us again at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
How I long for my Indiana home. And let's go racing.
If you guys ever get a chance to come back and attend one of these races here, I strongly recommend it. The 500 is one of those events you really can't watch on TV and get the whole atmosphere that comes along with it. The sights, the sounds, the speeds, the amount of people here is pretty phenomenal. Check out. If racing's not your thing, it's always the world's largest people watching event. That's kind of fun too, so you see all kinds while you're here. So I hope you guys enjoy the museum, enjoy Indianapolis, your time here in the city, and have a safe trip back home. So thank you guys.